Hello. Along all the streets and alleyways of Japan, you can always come across shrines of various sizes. People often believe that deities exist, and that shrines are the places where these deities reside. When a person dies, their soul leaves the body. Death is not the end, but a transition into another form of existence. And the story I'm about to tell you today is titled, The Revenge of the Ghost. A female university student disappeared on her way back to the dormitory after her late-night part-time job. Her body was found in a deserted area a few days later. After 7 years of investigation with no progress, the police finally found the murderer. However, the result even gave rise to many strange speculations. Mizako Hiraoka. The story takes place in 2009. The setting is Hamada City, Japan. Hamada City is located in the western part of Shimane Prefecture, bordering Masuda City and Oda City. The main character of the story is named Mizako Hiraoka, 19 years old. She is a first-year university student, very fond of English, and dreams of traveling around the world one day. In order not to become a financial burden on her family, she found a part-time job at an ice cream shop through an intermediary company. Almost every day after school, she would work at the ice cream shop until 9 p.m. After her shift ended, she would walk from the shop back to the student dormitory. The distance from the ice cream shop to the university dormitory is about 2 kilometers. Although that is not very far, there is a small road in the middle of the route. That small road has almost no streetlights because there are no houses around, so very few people pass by. It is especially deserted at night. Walking alone at night like that requires a certain amount of courage, especially for a young female university student like Mizako Hiraoka. This was a major challenge. At first, there was a co-worker at the ice cream shop who also lived in the same dormitory area as her. So every day after their shift, the two of them would usually walk together and return to the dormitory without any problems. However, recently that co-worker suddenly quit the job for unknown reasons, so Mizako Hiraoka could only walk alone on the dark road back to the dormitory at night. Just like most other girls, Hiraoka was always afraid of walking home alone late at night. She felt anxious and unsafe. She also intended to quit her job early, but no one expected that right when she was preparing to stop working. Disaster would suddenly strike her. So what exactly happened on that day? What misfortune did Hiraoka encounter? Next, we will push back in time and return to October the 26th, 2009. Mizako Hiraoka, October 26th, 2009. It was a Monday at the beginning of the week. Hiraoka came to the store to start her part-time shift as usual after a day at school. At 2100, this was the time her shift ended, since her co-worker had suddenly quit. Therefore, Hiraoka would have to walk back to the dormitory alone. Aside from walking 2 kilometers through the dark road, she did have another option, which was to take a bus from the store to the city station, and then take another bus that looped back to the dormitory. However, this method would cost additional transportation fees. At that time, Hiraoka thought for a moment. Because she was preparing to go abroad as an exchange student, her finances were somewhat tight. If she could save a little more, that would be good, so she decided to walk back to the dormitory on the deserted road by herself. After that, she took a trash bag from the store and left. But no one could have imagined that she would never return after walking out. On the next day, October 27th, 2009, Hiraoka's parents received a phone call from the ice cream shop where Mizako Hiraoka worked. The person on the phone said he was Hiraoka's co-worker. He wanted to ask her parents if they had any way of contacting her because she did not show up for work that day. He had tried to reach her many times but was unsuccessful. Hiraoka's parents clearly showed anxiety because in the morning, they had already called their daughter but could not reach her, assuming her phone simply had problems. Immediately afterward, her parents hurriedly shopping called the school to check whether their daughter was on campus, but everyone said she had not returned to the dormitory since the previous night. The more they thought about it, the more they felt something was wrong. They felt certain that something had happened to their daughter, so they reported it to the police. More than a week had passed since Hiraoka was reported missing, and although the police investigation was still ongoing, Mizako Hiraoka had still not been found. On the morning of November 6, 2009, a man was picking mushrooms on Mount Gariyū, located on the border between Hiroshima and Shimane prefectures. Suddenly, he noticed a round-shaped object among the fallen leaves in front of him. He stepped closer to examine it carefully and realized that the round object was actually the head of a young girl. Shocked and terrified, the man immediately ran to report it to the police. After receiving the report, the police quickly arrived and sealed off the scene. At the scene, police discovered signs of strangulation and scratch marks made by fingernails on the victim's neck, many bruises on her face, and traces of being stomped, clearly indicating that she had been assaulted. Based on her short hairstyle, the victim closely resembled the university student Hiraoka, who had gone missing more than a week earlier. Police then conducted a DNA test comparing the victim with Hiraoka's parents, and the results matched. Her parents were devastated upon receiving the news. The horrifying case caused extreme panic among the residents of Shimane Prefecture. They hoped the police could resolve the incident as soon as possible to restore peace to everyone. Because the case occurred on Mount Gariyū, located on the border of Hiroshima and Shimane, police from both prefectures dispatched officers and formed a special joint investigative team. A large number of officers entered the Mount Gariyū area in hopes of searching for the remaining parts of the body. The police later found a left femur, stripped of flesh, near the entrance of the forest. The torso and limbs were also discovered in the eastern area of the forest. Additionally, police found some animal droppings mixed with several human fingernails about 300 meters from the mountain. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Hiraoka. Based on the available evidence, police deduced that Hiraoka had died sometime between October 26th and October 31st. They believed that the location where the head was found was not the primary crime scene. Police proceeded to search all abandoned houses in the Mount Gariyū area in an effort to find the initial crime scene, but after a thorough search, they were unable to find anything. Therefore, the police inferred that Hiraoka had been dismembered and then transported to Mount Gariyū to be disposed of. Based on the marks on her neck, it was highly likely that Hiraoka was strangled to death. Of course, other possibilities were not ruled out. To quickly identify the killer and reduce the public's anxiety, the authorities continued to deploy additional investigative officers. They found some pieces of vinyl plastic on Hiraoka's body. After examination and analysis, it was believed that this material was packaging used for telephone directories. When police investigated the supplier of this packaging material, they learned that it had been produced since 1995 and distributed in the cities of Miyoshi, Higashi Hiroshima, Kure, and Mihara. The distribution area was too wide, like searching for a needle in a haystack, so this lead also fell apart. At that time, a man living near Mount Gariyū provided information to the police. He stated that he often saw a car driving very fast around 2100 hours at night some time ago. However, he had not seen the vehicle since the incident occurred. Unfortunately, the police could not find anything even after reviewing multiple surveillance recordings since Hiraoka's disappearance at the end of October. The police investigation was carried out simultaneously from many angles. Friends around Hiraoka and any students connected to her were all interrogated individually. They wanted to know whether Hiraoka had any conflicts at school. Her friends said that she had a cheerful, humble personality and was kind to others. Besides studying, she worked very diligently. She did not go out with others often and had never been seen in conflict with anyone. She did not have a boyfriend, so there were no romantic disputes. Therefore, the police basically ruled out revenge, stemming from personal grudges. On the road about 500 meters from the dormitory, the police found a black left-foot sneaker. However, the police could not confirm whether it belonged to Hiraoka or whether she had dropped it. After that, they went to the route Hiraoka took after her shift on the night of the 26th, hoping to find useful clues. A witness reported that he saw a girl on the small road that night, and she got into a silver-white Toyota car, the model being a Mark II sedan, but he did not remember the license plate clearly. The ice cream shop where she worked was a stall inside a local shopping mall. After extracting the surveillance footage, they saw that at 21:16 that night, Hiraoka was wearing a black and white striped shirt and walked outside with a black tote bag in her hand. This was the last footage recorded by the security camera. Next, let's take a look at the map of the route she usually walked home at night. This is the shopping mall, and here is the dormitory area. The distance between the two locations is 2 kilometers. Between them is a wooded area, and inside that wooded area is a small road. That road is very deserted even during the day. Normally, after 9 p.m., there are almost no people on it. Along the road, there are only a few scattered streetlights and no surveillance equipment. Both sides of the road have guardrails and no houses. For a girl to walk on that road at night is truly very dangerous. A witness saw a girl get into a car at the corresponding time, and it was very likely that this was Hiraoka. In other words, on that night, Hiraoka did not choose to take the bus back to the dormitory, but chose to walk alone. If true, then this was a case of an opportunistic crime. This makes solving the case more difficult. Based on the available clues, police invited criminal psychologists to conduct a psychological analysis of the killer. The location where Hiraoka was found, Mount Gariyū, is about 25 kilometers from the student dormitory. Experts believe that while traveling on the small deserted road, the perpetrator saw Hiraoka walking alone. Thus, the perpetrator formed malicious intent, lured her into the vehicle, and drove away from the road. Based on the available clues, they speculated that the perpetrator was a man living nearby between 20 and 40 years old and single. Due to a lack of new leads, the case reached a deadlock. Since the incident occurred, the media continuously reported that the perpetrator was possibly still hiding in Shimane Prefecture. This caused extreme fear among Shimane residents. Police requested that university students in Shimane avoid going out alone at night and preferably not walk to the dormitory by themselves. The dormitory curfew was changed from midnight to 2200 hours. The city authorities also required relevant departments to increase street lighting and surveillance equipment and to strengthen nighttime patrols in hopes of protecting public safety. At this time, a supernatural incident occurred that gave everyone chills. During a live news report at the deserted road, someone heard a strange sound at the scene. Many people said that they seemed to hear the voice of a woman during that moment, but because the sound was too faint, they could not hear what she was saying. Let us re-watch the 7 p.m. news segment from Shimane Prefecture.
広島から捜索の最新情報の報告です。
広島県北広島町の我流山の林道の入り口です。今日の捜索は午後5時で終了し、私の後ろに張られていた規制線も現在。
After the video spread online, someone analyzed it and claimed that the audio contained the words, "It hurts? Why is it only me?" Due to delays in solving the case, it shifted from a local case to a nationwide sensation, and the police were under unprecedented pressure. On January 20th, 2010, the head of the National Police Agency visited and stood before Hiraoka's memorial photograph. He swore that he would do everything in his power to solve the case as soon as possible. However, contrary to expectations, the killer seemed to have vanished from the world. Thus, the case became unsolved. But the story was not over. 7 years after the incident in 2016, during which time the Japanese police had mobilized over 310,000 officer deployments and established a special reward. Anyone providing useful information would receive 3 million yen. Every day, the police worked tirelessly to investigate the case and distributed countless flyers to find the perpetrator. Finally, a breakthrough occurred when police reviewed all sexual offense records. They found a man named Yoshiharu Yano. It was known that he grew up in Shimonoseki City, Yamaguchi Prefecture. His father owned a rice shop, his mother did laundry work, and he had a younger brother. Because of his excellent academic performance, he had always been a source of pride for his parents. For unknown reasons, however, a student as good as him suddenly dropped out of university and returned to his hometown. In 2004, he was sentenced by the court to 3 years and 6 months in prison for following a woman and threatening her with a knife in the Tokyo area. It was not until May 2009 that he was released. After his release, he returned to his hometown and worked for a solar energy company. His job was in sales, and due to his strong performance, he was assigned to manage the area near Shiman University. At that time, he lived in Masuda City. An investigation revealed that on November 6, 2009, the day Hiraoka's body was discovered, Yano, who had never taken leave before, requested 2 days off from his company. On November 8th, he took his mother to visit his father's grave. Then, at around 3 p.m., his car suddenly caught fire on the road for unknown reasons. When police arrived at the scene, they found only 2 charred bodies, and there were no skid marks at the site. Witnesses stated that they saw the car collide with the roadside guardrail multiple times, after which white smoke came out from the hood, and the car burst into flames as soon as it stopped. Incidents like this usually attract major attention from the media. However, at that time, the press in Shimane Prefecture was focused entirely on reporting Hiraoka's disappearance, so no one paid attention to this strange car accident. 7 years after the incident, police were extremely surprised to discover that the burned car belonging to Yano and his mother had appeared near the location where Hiraoka was found on October 26, 2009. The time was between the night and early morning of October 26th. This finally gave the case a breakthrough. Immediately after obtaining this information, police went to Yano's house in Masuda City to investigate. In his home, officers found a camera and a USB drive left with Yano's younger brother. After restoring the deleted data, police found 57 photographs inside. The images showed Hiraoka tied up in the bathroom of Yano's house with scratches and bruising on her neck. Some of the photos even included Yano's face. Among the 57 photos, after removing duplicates, about 40 images were considered critical evidence to conclude the case. Perhaps because those images were too horrifying, the police have never made them public to this day. The Hiraoka case was finally brought to light. On December 20th, 2016, police announced that the 7-year unsolved case had been solved, and that there was sufficient evidence to prove that the perpetrator was Yoshiharu Yano, who had died in a car accident 7 years earlier. However, because he had already passed away, the prosecution issued a decision in January 2017 not to indict. The Hiraoka case, which once threw Shimane Prefecture into chaos, had finally come to an end. Because both the perpetrator and the victim had already died, the police did not reveal many further details. What is strange is that a car accident occurred immediately after the perpetrator committed the crime, with no clear cause. Some people believe it was simply an accident. Others believe he killed himself along with his mother out of fear of punishment, and that visiting his father's grave beforehand proves this. A small number of people believe it was the revenge of the girl's spirit. Today's video ends here. See you again in the next cases. Goodbye.